The night before my wedding registration, my fiancé sent me a message that was so calm it almost looked polite.
Lian Shu, I talked it over with my parents again.
The $660,000 we promised as the engagement gift is too much. Let us change it to $66,000.
Lucky number. Less pressure, more practical for our future.
Also, after we marry, we should register the apartment under my mother's name first. It will make my parents feel secure. If you agree, meet me at 8 tomorrow morning in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. If not, then maybe we should stop here. I stared at those lines for a full 3 minutes. Not because I was shocked, but because I was suddenly wide awake. Yesterday, he had still been holding my hand in front of both families, telling everyone that $660,000 was not money. It was respect. It was sincerity. It was the face his family wanted to give mine. Over one night, respect had shrunk by 90%, and sincerity had become a demand that I hand over property as well. I put the phone down, then picked it up again and replied with exactly one word.
Okay.
As soon as the message went through, I blocked his number, blocked his WeChat, blocked his work account, and turned off red receipts on everything else. Then I turned around and looked at the apartment I had spent 3 years turning into something that felt like home. 10 sealed boxes stood in the living room. 2 movers waited by the door. My suitcase was already zipped. I had packed in stages over the past month, so quietly that not even the neighbors noticed anything missing. At first I packed only winter coats and books, then the jewelry, then the important files, then the painting supplies, then the coffee machine I had bought with my first bonus. Finally, I took down the framed photographs from the wall and left nothing behind but clean paint and empty hooks. One of the movers asked softly, "Miss Lian, everything?" I nodded. Everything that belongs to me. Not one spoon left behind. The older woman next door opened her door in a robe when she heard movement in the corridor.
Xiao Shu, moving now, but are not you getting married tomorrow?
I handed her the imported tea set I had prepared earlier and smiled as if I were discussing the weather. Not anymore, Auntie Fang. Thank you for looking after me all these years. She looked from my face to the stripped apartment and then back to me again. Her expression changed from curiosity to disbelief, then to something like pity, but I did not explain. There are some truths that become dirtier the more you speak them aloud. The elevator doors closed. The apartment key lay cold in my palm. When I dropped it into the landlord's box downstairs, I felt almost nothing. The truck pulled away from the old district at 4 in the morning, carrying the last visible proof of my 5-year relationship. My phone vibrated once in my bag. A new number.
Shoo, do not be childish.
66,000 is not little. My mom says your family is not selling a daughter anyway. Be at the bureau by 8. Don't embarrass everyone. Even now, he assumed I was pouting, negotiating, waiting to be coaxed back into obedience. I deleted the message without replying and told the driver the address of my new place. The car drove through still dark streets toward the riverfront district, where the towers got taller and the silence got more expensive. When the elevator opened onto the 42nd floor, the lights in the apartment turned on one section at a time. Glass, steel, warm wood, white flowers, and a view that gathered half the city into a sheet of light below me. This apartment had been purchased in cash 1 week earlier, under my own name only. The transfer had been processed on the same afternoon that my company closed its 3rd round of financing. If everything continued on schedule, my shares would be worth more by sunrise than Yu Zheng's entire family had seen in 3 generations. Yu Zheng, my almost husband, thought I was a senior operations manager at a small technology company with decent income and no backing. He knew I worked hard. He knew I often left late. He knew I did not talk much about money. From this, he concluded that I needed him more than he needed me. People often mistake silence for dependence. They confuse privacy with emptiness. They see restraint and imagine weakness. Yu Zheng had spent 5 years making exactly that mistake. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and sat at the kitchen island with a laptop and a glass of water. Then I opened the encrypted folder I had named Contingency. Inside were 3 subfolders. Plan 1. Plan 2.
Plan 3.
Plan 1 had been the version where love failed honestly. He confessed he no longer wanted the marriage. We parted cleanly. Plan 2 had been the version where pressure from his mother made him act badly, but he apologized before things broke. We would sign a marital asset agreement, redraw boundaries, and decide whether trust could still be rebuilt. Plan 3 was the version where he tried to humiliate me, reduce me, and still expected me to come to the altar smiling. Plan 3 had just been activated. I clicked into the file and checked every prepared note once more. Screenshots, call logs,
Money transfers.
messages from his mother. Nothing explosive. Not yet. Not scandalous enough to destroy a life. Just enough to prove a pattern. Enough to establish intent. Enough to make denial inconvenient. At 5:30, my friend Kiao Lin called. her voice still rough from sleep and already furious. Lian Shu, I just heard from Zhang Peipei.
Is it true? He tried to cut the engagement gift to 1/10 at the last minute.
And that old witch wants your apartment signed over after marriage. Tell me where you are.
I'm coming.
I told her the address and asked her for one favor instead. At 7:30, go to the old complex and watch the gate. If Yu Zheng shows up, take photos. Especially if he brings family or some ridiculous wedding convoy. There was a short silence. Then Qiao Lin gave a low whistle. So we are in that kind of mood tonight. We are in the kind of mood where I want to see how much face matters to people who have none, I said. After that, I called my assistant, who until then had only known I was taking a personal day. By 9 o'clock, she had already sent me updated files, my full compensation history, equity structure, property records, notarized asset statements. If anyone tried to imply that I was chasing Yu Zheng for money, I wanted the truth ready in a single folder. The dawn came pale and clean over the river. I did not cry. I did not pace. At 7:40, Qiaolin's messages started arriving in bursts. First, 3 photos of a black Audi decorated with a giant red ribbon parked in front of my former building. Behind it were 2 cheaper cars with plastic flowers taped to the hood, as if theater could cover pettiness. Then a video. Yu Zheng, in an ill-fitting gray suit, holding a bouquet of roses that had already started drooping. 2 male cousins trailed after him, looking sleepy and confused. No anxiety on his face.
No real concern.
Only irritation that I had made him wait one extra night. The audio was faint, but one of the cousins asked, "What if sister-in-law really gets angry and does not come down?" Yu Zheng snorted. Where would she go? She is 31, not 21. Who else does she think will marry her? Let her cool off. Once she sees the cars and everyone's here, she will behave. I watched the video twice, then set the phone down very carefully. 31. In his mind, that number had become a leash, a deadline, a discount tag. At 7:50, another video arrived. Yu Zheng was pounding on my old apartment door. When the landlord finally opened it with the backup key, the camera tilted inward. The apartment was empty. White walls, empty floor. No furniture, no curtains, no dishes, no traces of me. Yu Zheng froze in the doorway. The bouquet slipped from his hand and fell to the bare floor with a dry, humiliating sound.
Where is she? He shouted.
Where are her things? The landlord sounded more annoyed than sympathetic. Miss Lian moved out last night and paid the penalty in full. Who exactly are you? I'm her fiancé, Yu Zheng snapped, then immediately seemed to hear how ridiculous he sounded. Within 3 minutes, my blocked message folder filled with notifications from unknown numbers. What are you doing? Are you insane? Come back now. We can still talk. Don't make me lose face. After a cluster of insults came a softer message. Shu, I was upset earlier. We can keep it at 660,000. Come back. The order of his emotions was perfect. First authority, then anger, then bargaining. Not once did he ask whether I was hurt. Not once did he say he was wrong. At 8:15, his mother finally called from her own phone, which I had not yet blocked. Her opening voice was smooth with false patience. Xiaoshu, what kind of joke is this? Guests are here. The cars are here.
Zhang Zhang is waiting.
I let her speak for 10 full seconds before interrupting. Auntie Chen, who told you I moved out because I wanted to raise the price, she paused, then sharpened. Then why else? Don't be childish. We already agreed to restore it.
What more do you want?
I stood by the window and watched the river traffic far below. I do not want anything from your family anymore. And please tell your son that if he sends one more message accusing me of cheating, my lawyer will answer. My lawyer, she repeated, and the pitch of her voice changed in a way I recognized immediately. I went on calmly. Also, your cosmetic procedures over the last 8 months were very expensive. So were the mahjong losses. I imagine if anyone ever reviewed the expense reports of your husband's building materials company, the categories might raise interesting questions. The silence on the other end became heavy enough to touch. When she spoke again, the command had drained out of her. How do you know about that? That is not important, I said. What matters is that from now on, neither Yu Zheng nor anyone from your family comes near me again. I ended the call before she could recover and added her number to the blacklist. That should have been enough for a reasonable family. But reason had never been the core skill of the Yu household. At 10 of the clock, I arrived at my company. The lobby receptionist stood up the second she saw me, surprise darting through her practiced smile. Good morning, President Lian. I had postponed my marriage leave 2 weeks earlier and told only the executive office. Most people knew I was a founder. Very few people outside the company, including Yu Zheng, understood what that actually meant. 5 years ago, when he met me, Asterflow had not yet been named. It was still 2 laptops, 3 prototypes, and a rented room above a pharmacy. I did not tell him that my father's early illness had forced me to mature fast, or that I had spent every bonus and every ounce of pride building something of my own. He liked to imagine himself as the future center of every room. I saw no reason to argue with fantasy until it became dangerous. In the elevator to the executive floor, my assistant, Miao Yu, handed me a tablet and spoke in low, efficient sentences. Your notarized personal asset package is ready. The attorney from Chang & Zhou can meet at 3. HR also confirmed that if anyone unrelated attempts to enter the building to harass you, security will remove them and preserve footage. Good, I said. Also have legal prepare a cease and desist template. We may need it soon. Miao Yu glanced at me once, probably noticing that I was wearing the cream suit reserved for investors and bad news. She only nodded. The morning passed in contracts, financing updates, and product reviews. At noon, Chao Lin sent a voice message so breathless with delight that she barely stayed coherent. His mother was dining with Aunt Wu from your old neighborhood. You know, the woman whose hobby is spreading rumors like confetti. I went past their private room on purpose. Aunt Wu was already leaning in. Your future mother-in-law was saying you were old, selfish, materialistic, and impossible to marry off. Then I casually mentioned Auntie Chen's beauty clinic bills and the mahjong room she likes so much. Her face went white. I laughed despite myself. There it is, I said. Once they cannot pressure you with marriage, they switch to reputation. But reputation is only useful against women who still need permission from the crowd to live. I had already stepped beyond that district, beyond that building, and beyond the version of myself that could be frightened by neighborhood gossip. At 3, the attorney reviewed everything with me and spoke with the soothing precision of someone who has seen every form of male self-pity. Legally, he said, you are in a strong position.
No engagement contract. No marriage registration.
The relationship is simply over. If they continue to harass you, we can escalate. Do you want a warning letter sent now? Yes, I said. To Yu Zheng, to his home, and to the company where his father works. I do not enjoy threatening people, but I do believe in clear consequences. That evening, just after sunset, security called my office. Miss Lian, there is a man downstairs insisting he is your fiancé. He says, if you do not see him, he will call the media and expose you as a fraud. I went to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked down. Even from that height, I could recognize the agitated stiffness of his posture. Let him up, I said. Conference room. 3. Keep 2 guards outside. Record everything. By the time I entered the room, Yu Zheng had already worked himself into a righteous fury. He was still wearing the same suit from the morning, but the collar was open now and his hair had lost its shape. The bouquet was gone. In its place was a man who had discovered that humiliation feels different when it happens to you. He stood as soon as he saw me. Lian Shu, what exactly do you think you're doing? I stayed near the door instead of sitting. Ending a relationship, you should try understanding simple things before larger ones. He slammed both hands onto the table. You disappeared, emptied the apartment, threatened my mother, and embarrassed me in front of everyone.
You want money so badly? Fine.
We can talk about money. But what you did today crossed a line. I laughed quietly. Crossed a line? Yu Zheng, you moved the line first. He began to pace. You know what your problem is. You always act proud because you make a bit more than normal women. But you are still not practical. Marriage is about compromise. My mother only wanted security. No, I said. Your mother wanted leverage.
You wanted obedience.
And both of you confused my patience with surrender. He stopped pacing and stared at me in a way that suggested he had never quite seen me before. Then he leaned forward and lowered his voice, as if intimacy might still be used as a shortcut. Shu, do not go too far. We have been together 5 years. You are not 22 anymore. Breaking up now is not a small matter for you. There it was again. My age, wielded like a knife he thought only cut one way. Outside the half-open door, I knew people were listening, not because they were nosy, but because men like Yu Zheng are never dangerous, only in private. I looked at him steadily and said, then allow me to help you with the facts. I took the tablet from my folder and placed it on the table between us.
This is my personal property report, notarized. This is the deed to my new apartment. This is my shareholding certificate in Asterflow.
This is the compensation history that shows I do not, in fact, require your family's $66,000 for survival. And this, I said, sliding the final page over, is a draft cease and desist letter for harassment. Yu Zheng looked down. At first, he only frowned. Then his eyes widened. President and co-founder, equity, asset notarization. The numbers did not fit the woman he thought he knew. He picked up one page, then another, as if the paper itself might admit to lying. You're kidding, he said at last, but the sound of his own voice gave him away. I shook my head.
No.
What you are feeling is not disbelief. It is the collapse of an assumption. The room went very quiet. Even the anger in his posture faltered. From the doorway, one of our legal directors stepped in just enough to speak. Mr. Yu, if you continue making defamatory claims on company premises, we will proceed immediately. Yu Zheng did not answer her. He was still staring at the documents as though they had insulted him personally. Then, suddenly, he laughed once, a broken sound. So this is why.
You think you're better than us now?
No, I said.
I think I should have left sooner.
He looked up sharply. I went on. I never hid who I was. I simply never begged you to notice. You preferred a version of me that made you feel taller? That was never my responsibility. His face flushed, then blanched. For a second, I thought he would lunge across the table. Instead, he grabbed the file, realized it was not his to take, dropped it, and backed away from the chair.
Fine, he said.
Fine.
You want to act like this? Don't regret it later. He turned toward the door. I stopped him with one last sentence. If your mother spreads one more rumor about me, I will stop being polite. He did not answer. He just left. But families like his never understand a line until they have tripped over it 3 times. For the next 2 days, his aunts, uncles, and cousins came at me from every direction. Voice notes full of fake concern. Phone calls about my age, messages about forgiveness, womanly virtue, and the tragedy of being too hard to marry. I blocked everyone. Then Yu Zheng tried a different strategy. He sent a handwritten letter through his younger cousin at my office. In it, he claimed his mother had fainted from stress and wanted to apologize. He said all the comments about reducing the engagement gift had been her idea. He said he had been caught in the middle. The letter would have been more convincing if it had not contained 3 paragraphs about what a pity it would be for me to lose such a stable man. That same afternoon, I instructed legal to send the warning letter out formally. Then I went back to work because venture financing is less sentimental than almost marriage and therefore much easier to manage. 2 nights later, at 8:40, I drove out of the underground garage beneath our headquarters and nearly hit him. Yu Zheng stepped directly into the lane and spread his arms as if his body still had the right to stop mine. I braked hard. He came straight to my window, slamming his palm against the glass. His shirt was wrinkled. His face had lost all color. In one hand, he held a bouquet of red roses that had gone dark at the edges.
Shu, please.
Just hear me out. I know I was wrong. We can keep 660,000. We can make it 880 if you want. My mother is in the hospital. She wants to say sorry to you herself. Don't be this ruthless. I did not lower the window. I turned on the camera on my phone and pointed it at him. Yu Zheng, I said through the speaker, this is your final warning. You are blocking a moving vehicle, creating a safety hazard, and continuing a documented harassment pattern. Security and the police have already been contacted. Everything you say and do from this point forward is being recorded. The performance vanished from his face so fast it was almost elegant. Pain, guilt, pleading, all gone. Only fear remained. Real fear, which always looks smaller than anger. You would call the police on me, he said, and there was genuine disbelief in it, as if he had found the edge of my humanity and been disappointed by the result. Yes, I said. Try me. The first security card arrived from the side entrance. Yu Zheng looked over his shoulder, then back at me. He seemed to realize all at once that I would really do it. That I would file every report, keep every video, and outlast every scene. He dropped the bouquet and ran. I sat in the car for a full minute after he disappeared, hands still on the wheel, letting the adrenaline shake through and out of me. It was not fear. It was simply the body's way of releasing a battle it had already decided to win. After that night, he vanished. Completely. His father called my attorney to promise that the family would no longer contact me. His mother, perhaps remembering her own accounts, stayed silent. The neighborhood rumors faded because rumor requires oxygen, and I stopped giving them any. My life simplified in ways I had forgotten were possible. I worked late because I wanted to, not because I was proving loyalty to a future I no longer wanted. I filled the new apartment slowly, a better sound system, thicker curtains, real oil paints, a dining table large enough for honest friends. I signed up for an executive strategy program I had postponed twice for the sake of coordinating with Yu Zheng's schedule. I resumed morning runs by the river. I traveled to Suzhou with Qiao Lin for a weekend and bought silk scarves without having to justify the expense to anyone. 3 weeks after the breakup, our Series B roadshow closed successfully. Asterflow's valuation rose again. My inbox filled with congratulations, meeting requests, and the specific kind of attention the market pays to women it can no longer ignore. A celebration dinner was scheduled in the ballroom of the Intercontinental downtown. On the afternoon of the event, while choosing earrings in my dressing room, Qiao Lin called just to laugh. Guess who got transferred to the worst branch office in his company? Your ex-fiancé. Apparently he annoyed a client, then missed a deadline, then somehow blamed everyone else. I asked whether she took joy in other people's suffering. She said only when they have earned it honestly. That evening, I wore a navy velvet gown and diamond studs that caught the light. Every time I turned my head. When I stepped into the ballroom, investors rose from their seats, partners lifted glasses, cameras turned, and the stage screen lit with our company logo. The host introduced me not as someone's future wife, not as a woman who should be grateful to be chosen, but by my title and the value I had created. Co-founder, president, major shareholder, strategic lead. Words have weight when they are earned. They sounded better than vows. During the second toast, Qiao Lin leaned toward me and murmured, "Don't look now." Actually, look now. Near the back entrance, behind the floral installation, and beyond the invited guests, stood Yu Zheng. He was not supposed to be there. The event required invitation and registration. He must have followed someone in or used an old connection. His suit was cheaper than before, but brushed and carefully chosen, as if he still believed presentation could repair status. The moment he realized I had seen him, he stepped forward. For one strange instant, it felt like time had folded. The same man, the same face, but all the coordinates had changed. He was now the one out of place, and I was exactly where I belonged. Security moved first, but I raised a hand slightly to stop them.
Let him speak, I said.
Quietly, Yu Jung came close enough that I could see exhaustion in the skin beneath his eyes. He looked around the room once, taking in the investors, the executives, the light, the view, the deference aimed at me. Then he let out a breath that sounded almost like surrender. So this was your life all along? No, I said. This was my life in progress. You just never paid attention to anything that did not enlarge you. He nodded as if the blow had landed exactly where it should. There was no anger in him tonight, only loss. I know I was arrogant, he said. I know I thought too little of you. I know I thought you would always stay. He looked at the stage where my name still glowed on the screen. I thought you needed me. That was your first mistake, I said. Your second was thinking need and love are the same. His mouth tightened. I deserve that. He reached into his coat pocket and took out something small and wrapped in tissue. It was the engagement ring I had once chosen with him. He held it out to me in his palm like a relic. I found this in my desk drawer. I thought maybe it should come back to you. I looked at the ring but did not take it. Keep it, I said. It belongs to your education. For the first time that night, a faint, bitter smile touched his face. You really are ruthless now. No, I answered. I am simply no longer available for cheap interpretations of my kindness. The music shifted in the ballroom. Someone on stage was calling my name for the final group photo. Yu Jung heard it too. He looked at me one last time, then stepped aside of his own accord. This was the first dignified thing he had done in months. As I walked toward the stage, Chow Lin fell into step beside me and whispered, "Was that closure?" I thought for a second and then shook my head.
No.
Closure happened when I packed the coffee machine. The audience laughed when the photographer asked us to move closer together and stop looking so serious. I smiled because the room was full of people who knew what I built, because my future no longer depended on anyone's approval, and because the night was mine. Months later, when autumn was nearly gone, I saw Yu Jung one last time. I was in a high-end supermarket buying ingredients for dinner. He stood near the chilled meat section with a half-empty cart and a face I almost did not recognize. He looked thinner, smaller somehow. The kind of smallness that comes when self-importance has been starved. When he saw me, he hesitated before saying my name. Shu? I turned, nodded once, and asked with complete politeness, Mr.
You, do you need something?
That title hurt him more than anger would have. I watched it happen. He swallowed and tried anyway. I just wanted to say, back then, it was my mother pushing me.
I should have stood up for you.
I listened until he finished, because hearing a man explain his cowardice in full can be useful. Then I said, none of that matters anymore. You made your choices. I made mine. Mine worked out better. He stared at me for a long moment, perhaps expecting one soft edge left somewhere he could still touch. There was none. I pushed my cart past him and did not look back. That winter, under a sky the color of steel, our company opened a new office in Shanghai. I signed the final papers in the glass conference room on the 36th floor, then stepped outside with a cup of black coffee and watched the city move. The younger me would have called that loneliness. The current me called it room. People often ask when a woman truly leaves. They imagine it happens during the last argument, or after the final betrayal, or when she deletes a phone number. They are wrong. A woman truly leaves the moment she stops negotiating with disrespect. The moment she decides that being chosen badly is not better than standing alone. The moment she understands that peace is sometimes purchased not with compromise but with a locked door and a signed deed. On the first evening in the new office, my team took me out for hot pot. Someone suggested a toast to President Lien for killing the impossible schedule and then somehow asking for a harder one. Everyone laughed. I lifted my glass and said, "To not confusing endurance with destiny." There was a beat of silence, then more laughter, warmer this time, though a few people looked at me as if they understood more than I had said. Later that night, back in my apartment, I opened a drawer and found the old spare key to the place near Yu Jung's building. I must have thrown it in out of habit when I moved. I turned it over once in my fingers. Then I walked to the trash can and dropped it in without ceremony. Metal, hitting metal, a small sound.
Final.
Outside, the city shone through the glass, full of 1,000 windows and 1,000 private lives. Somewhere, women were still being told to lower their expectations to keep a man. Somewhere, men were still mistaking access for value. I could not save all of them, but I had saved myself, and that was not a small thing. I poured a glass of water, set tomorrow's investor deck on the table, and looked at my reflection in the darkened window. No wedding makeup. No red booklet.
No husband.
No apology pending.
Only me. Exactly where I had fought to be. When I finally turned away from the glass and went to bed, the room around me was quiet, expensive, and entirely mine. That, I had learned, was a far better blessing than any marriage certificate ever offered. And the most beautiful part was this. I had not even begun the next chapter yet. I only knew that when it came, it would not be built on bargaining, pity, or fear. It would be built the way I built everything worth keeping. With clear eyes, my own hands, and no discount on respect. 3 months after Shanghai, I was invited to speak at a founders forum about risk, timing, and strategic restraint. The moderator asked what the hardest negotiation of my year had been. Half the room expected a financing story. I smiled and said, the hardest negotiation was with myself. I had to decide how much disrespect I was willing to rename as patience. A few people laughed softly. A few others stopped smiling because they knew exactly what I meant. After the panel, a young woman in a navy cardigan waited until everyone else had left and then approached me with trembling hands. She said she had been postponing the end of an engagement for almost a year because her fiancé's family kept telling her that a woman should bend first. She said she had started to wonder whether love simply looked humiliating up close. I told her no. Love can involve compromise, inconvenience, sacrifice, relocation, uncertainty, and even grief. But the one thing it should never require is self-erasure in exchange for basic dignity. She cried after hearing that, which embarrassed her so much that she immediately apologized. I handed her a tissue and asked what exactly she was sorry for. She laughed then, still crying, and the sound reminded me of the version of myself that once believed staying quiet would keep peace. That night, when I got home, I found a delivery box in the lobby. Inside was a fountain pen from my mother with a card. It said, "You sounded very expensive on stage." I mean that as the highest compliment.
Keep going.
I laughed so hard I had to sit down on the entryway bench. My mother had never wasted affection on poetry. She believed in good schools, clean books, ironed collars, and the occasional lethal sentence delivered over soup. When I finally told her the full story of the broken engagement, she had listened without interrupting and then asked only one question. "Did he ever make you smaller so he could feel bigger?" When I said yes, she replied, "Then he was never marriage material." Sometimes wisdom does not arrive as comfort. Sometimes it arrives as a verdict that frees you from defending the obvious. Near the end of spring, Astor Flo signed a strategic partnership with a European hardware group. The final meeting ran late. By the time I left the office, the city below was a field of wet reflections after rain. I stood under the awning waiting for my driver when someone handed me an umbrella before the rain could reach me. It was Shen Yao, our new external counsel, who had joined the negotiation halfway through and spent most of the evening silently preventing 3 men from wasting everyone's time. "You looked like you were planning to walk through the weather out of principle," he said. "I thought I would interrupt the performance."
That made me laugh.
It had been a long time since a man had spoken to me without posturing, testing, or assuming. I took the umbrella and thanked him. He did not use the moment to flirt badly. He only asked whether I had eaten dinner. No promises were made under neon lights. No destiny announced itself. He just offered to recommend a place nearby that still served decent congee at that hour. I said yes, because for once, yes did not feel like surrender. It felt like choice. Later, much later, I would remember that moment not as the beginning of a new love, but as proof that I had become someone who could meet possibility without fear. The city after rain smelled clean. My shoes clicked softly against the pavement. Beside me, the umbrella tilted just enough to cover both shoulders. I stepped forward into the bright, wet street and did not once mistake gentleness for ownership again.